Alrighty, friends, it is noon, and so I think we will go ahead and get started just so that we can maximize the time that we have here today. So first off, thank you guys so much for joining us to our guide for funding for women business owners. My name is Amanda Lundstedt, and I am an SBA Commercial Lender with Lincoln Savings Bank here in Des Moines, Iowa. And we actually have quite a few people that are on this webinar, both from inside the state and from outside of the state. So I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to join us today. And I really just want you to come to this space today, really just thinking, what is at least one thing that I'm going to learn? I always love when I'm on these webinars as an attendee, taking something away that's just, even if I just learned one thing, it was totally valuable to my time. So I hope that you guys come to the space with that mindset. There will be a time later on and towards the end of the webinar where we will do questions and answers. So if you have questions as you go along, do please go ahead and type them into the chat. And then Leslie is one of our amazing team members here at Lincoln Savings Bank, and she will be assisting me with those once we get to that point in the webinar. So even if you have a question as we go along, just go ahead and type it in there. And then we will get to those questions when we're to that point in the webinar. So to start off, I just want to introduce a little bit about myself and about Lincoln Savings Bank. So a little bit about Lincoln Savings Bank. We are a community bank. We like to say with a twist or two. So we're an employee-owned community bank, but we're so much more. We are well over 100 years old. We first opened for business in 1902 in the Cedar Valley, which is the northeast part of the state of Iowa. And now we've grown to 17 branches and we have assets of over 1.5 billion. We have really, being a community bank with our core values, we really seek to give back to the communities that we serve. So that's just something that's really important to the culture of our bank and to the work that we do, and especially with my position as a small business lender. We are super passionate about serving entrepreneurs and small business owners. And one of the ways that we do this as a bank is through the LSB Foundation, which we started in 2005. So we've contributed over $3 million to a variety of organizations, individuals, and community endeavors. So we give gifts towards everything from the Special Olympics as a major sponsor organization that we sponsor, to financial literacy. We've got an awesome program partnered on financial literacy with the University of Northern Iowa, UNI, up in Waterloo. But we provide contributions really to just a wide variety of organizations and people and places here in central Iowa and and in the state of Iowa and beyond. So it's just an important part of who we are. We, as I said, started in 1902 in Lincoln, Iowa, and then we've really grown over the years to our biggest expansion was last year in 2021 when we opened our corporate headquarters at the TechWorks Operations Center in Waterloo, Iowa, in downtown Waterloo. So if life ever takes you that way, definitely reach out to a Lincoln Savings Bank team member and check out the Operations Center up there. It's actually really, really cool. Right in the heart of downtown, revitalized an amazing, beautiful building on the John Deere campus. So really cool thing. So a little bit about myself before we dive into the challenges that business owners face. So just want to talk a little bit about who I am and why am I here and want to share with you these things today. So at Lincoln Savings Bank, I'm a small SBA commercial lender. So my portfolio is working exclusively with small business owners. And primarily the ones that are in my portfolio are women business owners and minority business owners. So this is an area that I'm very, very passionate about. And a huge reason for my passion comes from that because I have been a small business owner myself as a woman. My husband and I started, and I was the sole owner and operator of it. I had my husband's support, but he was not involved with the day-to-day of the business. And I started that as a young woman and grew and eventually sold that business to continue my career on. So after that, I was a business coach working again with primarily women and minority business owners doing business coaching. And then that transpired into the opportunity to work in banking banking and lending at the SBA level with small business owners. So my passion for female business owners and entrepreneurship runs deep. And I see that passion at Lincoln Savings Bank. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity to share with you today some of the challenges that I've seen that women business owners face, and then how to overcome those challenges with the opportunities that are out there. So with that, I do want to just take a quick sec. For those of you that are in the state of Iowa on this call, I want to reference an amazing article that was in the Des Moines Register actually 1 week ago today. So 3/24, March 24th, and it was titled "Small Businesses Need a Smart SBA Renewal to Compete." And it was a great article by a guest editor of a female business owner in central Iowa. And just about how female business owners need to be able to come to the table and just what they bring to the table and the opportunities and the challenges that overcome. So it was just super fun timing of that article, total coincidence. But I wanted to reference that because I'll refer to that here later on as we go in the content of the webinar. But also if you want to go back and try to find that article in the Des Moines Register, it was a really good article I'd recommend. So with that being said, we're going to switch gears into the meat and potatoes of this webinar today. So I want to talk through and start with saying to go over some of the common challenges that women-owned businesses face. And these are things that I see every single day in my work as an SBA commercial lender. So these are things that are not necessarily exclusive to women business owners, but it is something that unfortunately more frequently we see for women business owners. So we're going to talk about the challenges, and then we're going to talk about how to overcome those challenges and what are the resources that are out there. So one of the single biggest things that women business owners face is that they don't have enough collateral to get traditional financing and bank lending. Banks and credit unions and traditional entities that lend like to see a strong amount of collateral to back the loan for which they're going to write. But a lot of women business owners don't always have the amount of collateral that the banks or the lending institutions require. And that's very, very common. The second thing that we see is women business owners don't always have enough of an equity injection, which is similar to a down payment. So I put those words in parentheses there. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's the closest comparison that when we try to describe what an equity injection is. Typical lenders traditionally want to see quite a high amount of equity injection. And this will vary from lending institution to lending institution. But it's very hard for women business owners when they're trying to come to the table, either start up or buy a business, to have enough of that injection of equity to be able to support the loan or the lending amount that they would like to have. So that can typically be a barrier that's hard for them to overcome when they're needing those lending and financing options. Another common challenge is that student and school loan debt. So just as we see a rising cost of undergraduate and graduate schools, the cost of it is burdensome. And so we see this typically with there's a couple that we see just because of the professional credentials that's required when they typically want to go into private practice. So for female veterinarians, female chiropractors, female physical therapists, MDs, and attorneys, all of those women entrepreneurs coming out of school, if they want to go into private practice and start a business, typically that amount of debt that they are carrying can be very burdensome to a lending institution to be willing to take them on and lend them additional money. The fourth thing that I regularly see and my team regularly sees here at Lincoln Savings Bank is that there is not always a high enough credit score to justify the loan amount or the lending amount. So this is also a common challenge that honestly we see, and statistics will back up the statement, more often with women-owned businesses than men. And there's a variety of reasons for this. One of the several reasons are for it. It can be anything from medical debt to, if there was a divorce, sometimes that can affect the credit score. Those are kind of some of the biggest ones that I see. But also, we just want to make sure that borrowers that are becoming and wanting to go into business or to expand their business, that they are able to use credit responsibly. And so that's something that we look at. But it is a challenge that a lot of women business owners face if they don't either know what their credit score is or if it's needs some work on it. So that's definitely something that for all of you guys on this webinar, always be aware of what your credit score is and always be seeking opportunity to improve that. That's just a common, unfortunately, across the board challenge that we see. And that's common, if you're getting a mortgage, if you're getting business lending, it's definitely not unique to entrepreneurs, but it's something that I see quite a bit as a challenge for women business owners trying to get financing options. And then the last one that we see regular is the lack of local banking resources. So a good analogy that I like to use, my husband, so I'm from Des Moines, Central Iowa, the capital city here in Iowa. My husband's from a very small farming community in Southwest Iowa. Their small farming community has one bank. It's a great bank, but that bank does not have the resources to be able to support helping finance and fund the businesses to the amount that they need there. The bank's just not big enough. So that's definitely something that a lot of female business owners face when they're trying to establish a relationship with a local bank. Not every bank is able to support and offer the funding that they need. And I always like to say too, the pendulum can swing a little bit too far sometimes too in the other way. So if you have like Banks of America or Wells Fargo, I'm not here to like knock on them. But they're really big banks. And so they don't always have the customer service level that women business owners need. They can't always even get somebody to get back to them. So, whether you are wherever you fall in that scheme with your banker, just make sure that you have a really good relationship with your local banker that can help support you and your business as a female-owned business. So now that we've talked about some of the challenges, I want to talk about some of the most common funding options that are available, and then we're going to dive into a little bit more in these in the last part of the webinar here. So some of the funding options that are most common out there is traditional or conventional bank lending. So this would look like going into your local bank and providing high collateral, a high credit score, usually a high down payment, and getting traditional bank lending. That is certainly an option, but it's not an overly common option, and I'll explain to you why in our next slide here. But that is a funding option that's available. Whether you're needing money to establish your business, buy a business, grow a business, expand a business, that can be an option that is available. Another funding option that I see quite a bit, well, I wouldn't say quite a bit, but I see, is private funding. So this can look like maybe finding an angel investor. This can look like gift money from parents, grandparents, great aunts and uncles. This can look like receiving an inheritance. I have one borrower that I'm working with. She was very blessed. Her father was an entrepreneur, and when he retired, he gifted her quite a bit of money so that she could go and start her business. So that is an option that certainly does exist out there that is viable for some female business owners. The third one is looking at often state options. So I know like here in the state of Iowa, we have what's called the Iowa Economic Development Authority, IEDA, and they have a program that's called the Targeted Small Business, and that is geared specifically to women and minority-owned program. It's geared specifically towards women and minority business owners. So it's called the TSB. And I definitely encourage borrowers when they fall into the category of something that the TSB can offer to go and to look into that. You do have to get certified into that program, but there are funding options that are there. It is going to be funding at a more micro level, which certainly isn't a bad thing. It's a great fit for the businesses that they serve. But last I checked, I think the cap on that was about $50,000. So we do have some business owners that start with that and then they'll grow and add other funding options from there. But know that state options sometimes can have some really, really good funding options. So if you're inside of Iowa, look at the IEDA. If you're outside of Iowa, definitely would encourage you to look and to see what funding options are available for women-owned businesses at the state level. And then the last is the SBA, which stands for the Small Business Administration. This is a federal funded program, so it's through the federal government, that really can be a really, really, really good option for female business owners, and I'll explain why in the next slide. But the SBA is, they serve any entity they are not exclusive to women business owners, but they certainly have some really great options that exist out there that really are great because I'm going to jump back a couple slides because they really help to overcome these challenges that many women business owners face. And I'll explain that here in our next slide. So diving a little bit more into that SBA, the options and the resources that are available to the SBA, the most common one that we see at the bank here at LSB is called the SBA 7A program. And this is a loan program that is for small business owners that do not may or may not qualify for conventional lending. So just to give you an idea of some really, really good I would say categories that fall into SBA 7As are if you are a startup business with little to no collateral, again, maybe you're just graduating from school and looking to go into private practice, the 7A can be a really, really, really great option. If you are an existing business that is looking to expand or to grow your business, maybe like right now I'm working on an application for a business that's looking to expand into a second new location. The 7A is an awesome option for them to do that expansion. Perhaps, one thing we're seeing right now is perhaps your business needs just a little bit of funding injection to cover the challenges that are coming with, supply chain shortages. The 7A would be a really, really, really good option just to help kind of bridge that gap. So we call that like a rehabilitation. The last one we would say where 7A is really, really good and common is with mergers and acquisitions or even successions. So if you are a small business owner that's looking to get out of your business and bring on another business owner, the 7A can be a really great option to help for that buyer to be able to have the purchase financing to come in and buy the business. So the 7A is a really great program because it does require typically sometimes it requires little to sometimes no equity injection, and it requires much less collateral, and it's a great resource to help again those women business owners overcome these challenges that they frequently face. There's another program, a couple of others here I want to touch on that are really, really great options and resources for funding for women business owners, is the SBA 504 program. You're going to see some similarity between the 7A and the 504 in that you're typically going to have a little bit less collateral and equity injection requirements, but the 504 is going to be a little bit more limited. It's actually quite a bit more limited to commercial real estate. So this can be a really, really great program if you are a business owner that's maybe renting or leasing space, or maybe in your home business and you're looking to invest into commercial real estate. I've got a great female business owner right now that I'm working with who is housed her business in her home, but it's growing and she's ready to move into commercial real estate to operate her business. So we're taking a look at this option for her. The 504 is certainly not as common as a 7A, just simply because it is limited to that commercial real estate, but it's a really, really awesome program that we have a couple of lenders on our team here at Lincoln Savings Bank that do that. So know that that's an option and a resource that is out there. Another resource that I want to share with you is the SBA Women Business Owners Contracting Program, which is through the federal government. And this particular piece was actually mentioned directly in that Des Moines Register article that I was alluding to earlier. This is a great program that the SBA and the federal government sets aside a goal of they want to match, I believe last I looked, it was up to 5% of federal contracting dollars to go explicitly to women business owners. And you guys, this actually goal has only been met twice since 1994. So we're closing in on 30 years and this goal has only been met twice annually. So this contractor program is actively looking for women business owners to be able to contract with to complete the services for the federal government and use a women business owner. Now you do have to be certified through the SBA. That is not a difficult process to go through, but that's definitely something that I would encourage you, regardless of your business, to look into, because it's certainly something that not enough female business owners know about and are using that opportunity. Then the last thing here that I would like to share with you is that women business owner centers that come through the SBA. So a friend of mine who's a district, or excuse me, regional director for the SBA, she describes this like as a hub and spoke. So the SBA has all these different spokes coming off of their hub, and this is one of them called the Women Business Owner Centers. These are all across the United States. So take a look, if you go to sba.gov and look this up, you can find the one that is closest to you. I know here in the central Iowa area, our WBO is located inside the Iowa Center for Economic Success, down very, very close to downtown Des Moines. So that is absolutely 100% something that I would encourage you guys, whether you're a female business owner on this webinar yourself, or if you know another female business owner, definitely look into that, because the resources there are absolutely phenomenal. So please look into that. So we've talked a little bit about the options and the resources that are available out there, but let's talk a little bit more on how to access these SBA options. So the best way, honestly, that we encourage people to do it is to contact your local banker. And here's the reason why. In order to go through the 504 and the 7A program, you cannot go directly to the SBA. You have to go through a lender that will provide that loan and get authorization through the SBA. So contact your local banker to find out what SBA options are available to you as a customer. And definitely be sure to ask really, really good questions. So some good questions I've looked on here put on here is to check their credentials. So ask, what awards have they won as a bank working with the SBA? How experienced is their team? Do they have one person on board with this? Do they have a whole team, as we do here at Lincoln Savings Bank? Another good, really great question to ask is just really inquiring, in terms of their experience, maybe you can ask what amount of loans that they've written, and whether that's a number or an amount. Those usually are published after the end of the year, and so that should be that is publicly accessible information. But always just be asking your banker what options are available out there and what it is, where you best fit into that for your specific business needs. And then lastly, always, you can contact your local SBA office. All of their information on all their offices is available online. I can speak very well of our local office. We've got a rockstar office and a rockstar team here in the Iowa district. And I know they are absolutely as passionate as I am about getting the resources that women business owners need and getting those options to you and helping your businesses thrive. So never ever hesitate to reach out to them. They are here to help, and they really want people to reach out to them so that they can help, you guys as your businesses thrive. So And then I just want to wrap up this part before we move into questions with why Lincoln Savings Bank. So again, we started with we're a community bank and we're big enough to have those options, but yet we're small enough to support our communities. Friends, we realize that you as female business owners are the backbone of countless communities, not only here, but across the United States. And we are deeply passionate about serving your needs and finding the best solution that fits you and to fit your business. You know, so many banks try to fit the customer into their mold. We are about how do we fit our mold to the customer, right? How is it that we really work to develop those relationships and say, how is it that we can best serve you? But then also when we go back to ask about their credentials, you know, we've got an amazing financial services team in partnership through a company called Vital, which is owned by Lincoln Savings Bank, but they are exclusively our SBA loan team members. And so every time we do a loan, we work with a Vital team member who helps from the SBA side to make sure that we have success for getting those loans through. And then the last thing I'm always a little bit kind of shy to talk about, but because we don't do it for the awards, but the fact of the matter is we have been deeply honored and privileged through our work and through our passion at Lincoln Savings Bank for serving small business owners and female small business owners. We have won the awards of being the top 7A small business lender at the state of Iowa district level for 2021 and 2020. We were top women business lender for the last 2 years. And then we were the top minority business lender in 2020, and we were the 2021 runner-up. And lightheartedly, I'm pretty competitive. And when I saw how close we were to getting the top minority business lender, we missed it by one application. So our team came together and said, you know what, we're going to do a better job next year. We are going to serve these minority business owners as deeply as and passionately as we possibly can, just to make sure that we are serving them well. So there's a little lightheartedness there. So with that all being said, I know it was a little bit like drinking from the fire hose, but again, I wanted to really maximize this 30 minutes. So Leslie, do you did anyone put any questions in the chat? I've got a couple of here that I actually had people ask me already. So I've got some here if we need to take those, but Leslie, go ahead and toss out a question or two and we'll start there.
So we don't have any questions in the chat yet. So maybe you want to start with one or two of them that you have there and give people the opportunity to add theirs in while you do that.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thanks, Leslie. So just to recap, if you guys have any questions on anything or any follow-up questions, go ahead and type them into the chat and then Leslie will get into them. But two questions that I've gotten really, really frequently, and I actually got one of them just as recent as yesterday, is what about grant options? What are the grant options that are out there for female business owners? And here's the best answer that I can give on that is that grants are they come and they go. And so they're not always on a regular availability, and they typically have a tendency, because they are grants, to be extremely limited in who can qualify for them. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a statement of fact of what is. So the best advice that I give people in regards to grants is just to do as much homework as you possibly can to find out what grants are available out there. But as a follow-up, you do really have to be prepared to pull the trigger to apply for those grants when they do come available, because the money does go extremely quickly. And then a follow-up to that is just recognizing that if you do apply for a grant, you do have to abide by all of their requirements for that grant process. And so typically they're not going to want to deviate from deadlines or requirements or anything like that. So that is something to just be aware of and keep in mind if and as you go for grant opportunities as a woman business owner. And then a follow-up question to that is regarding COVID recovery and COVID relief and funding options that are out there for that. Again, as we get further recovered from the pandemic, those resources do become less and less. But in the event that you do qualify for them. Again, you just have to make sure that you do your due diligence and recognize what is required of the application. And I will be honest, friends, on this webinar, to my knowledge, I can't think of any that are actually still active off the top of my head. But if you all know of one, feel free to put it in the chat, and we definitely will share that information here on the webinar. But the ones that I was aware of, and when I was coaching, helped my clients apply for, they've all retired or been retired. Leslie, I know we're coming up super close on 12:30. Do we have time for maybe just one more question?
Let me see here. Someone just made the comment that you are correct. The SBA does not currently have any COVID assistance programs available at the moment.
Thank you.
Awesome. That is the only comment that is in.
Okay,
right
good
now.
To know. Awesome. Well, thank you for that information, for that individual that provided that. Thank you. We all learned something new. Isn't it awesome? Well, just to wrap up, I just want to say thank you for attending today. I really hope that you learned, like I said, at least one little nugget that you can take away from here and apply to help your businesses thrive and be as successful as you possibly could be. If you have any questions on anything, do please reach out to me. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. And I just really want you guys and your businesses and your communities to thrive. So with that, thank you so much.